Hey, thanks again for joining us here on the Gill Athletics Connections podcast. We've got another just fantastic coach. Really excited to introduce Mr. Quinn Pack from, I'm going to pronounce it wrong again, Regis or Regis? Regis Jesuit High School in really beautiful Aurora, Colorado, right outside of Denver, man. You live in a pretty fantastic area.
As I was saying a little bit earlier to you before we came on, yeah, it is. It's beautiful out here. The fall weather is starting to show up, and it is a beautiful, crisp morning.
Yeah, good point, by the way. Thanks for getting up. Yeah, you had already been up and working and everything, but this is one of our first, like 8 a.m. crack of dawn, first thing on your to-do list type interviews for the podcast.
Well, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about it eventually, but I'm used to getting up at 5:30 during the summers to go birding, so this is late.
This is late. Yeah. All the other coaches right now that are, don't have practice and stuff, they're like, yeah, I'm taking this time to sleep in, man. There's enough early days during the season. Well, Quinn, let's get to know you a little bit better. Tell us about your the track coach at Regis Jesuit out there. Talk to us about what do you coach? How did you get into coaching? Let's just kind of start there.
Getting into coaching, I fell in love with track in high school, of course, as many coaches did. In high school, I was a 800-meter runner, triple jumper, 300-meter hurdler. Ran the 4x4, high jumper, pole vault. So I did a little bit of everything.
Holy cow! Yeah,
it was. My first coach was trying to make me a multi-eventer, and
yeah.
I wish he had stayed my 4 years because I know that's what I would have ended up being.
Interesting.
Because I could do a little bit of everything and run the 110s and so fell in love with track in high school. I did not have the opportunity to run in college. And I ended up coming back to the sport as a master's level athlete, so over 35 years old, and ran into a guy and just struck up a conversation at work one day. And he said, you run track? And I went, yeah, I do. He said, well, do you coach? And I went, well, I'm a pretty good teacher, so I could probably be a pretty good coach. And he said, well, can you come to my practice and help me out? And so I said, sure. And I went to the practice and I helped him out that season with his club team. And before I knew it, I had started my own club within a few years. And then I got the opportunity to move into high school coaching back in, I think it was 2014. That's kind of how I got into the coaching scene.
Well, we talked about it earlier on our pre-interview. So you grew up in the Baltimore area. You ended up going to school. You were I like to know every mascot for colleges. You're a Bear from Morgan State, right? Aren't they the Bears?
They are the Bears.
Yeah. All right. Good. I got it right. A great. I love that school. Their coaching staff there is amazing as well. Interesting. You were such a multi-disciplined athlete doing even the pole vault. I mean, that's kind of the rare one. Normally, you hear. Like when you said 800 and triple jump, I was kind of like, oh, that's a unique combination. But then you started throwing in pole vaulting and all this other stuff as well. Did you play other sports, or was this really focused on track and field during high school?
I played 2 years of football as well. And on the East Coast, unlike here in Colorado, we have a state-sanctioned high school indoor season. So football, indoor track, outdoor track were my three sports. Growing up, I played a lot of soccer before I got into track and field, but in high school, it was football and track.
Yeah, soccer's big out there in that area. That seems to be the hotbed, if you will, probably because of population base as well, but a lot of influence.
That and lacrosse is even bigger.
Is that right? Now, that's not a sport most people...
Yes, lacrosse is a big sport in Maryland. Hopkins, University of Maryland.
Oh, yeah.
Loyola. Yeah, it's a big sport.
Right, that's true. So out of all those events you did, what would you, not today, but back in high school, if I would have asked you, which one was your favorite event? If coach just said, hey, you can only do one event, what would you have chosen?
It would have probably been the 800. It'll probably been the 800.
You mentioned that one first, so I was kind of thinking that.
Yeah. It would have probably been the 800 meters because I wasn't quite fast enough to be a really good quarter miler. And I wasn't a miler but I had enough of that combination. I was the combination guy. I had enough speed and enough endurance to run the 8. And so I would probably say it was the 8. You know, after
Yeah.
that, it would have been the 300-meter hurdles, but the 800-meter was probably the favorite.
I see that combination a lot, the 800 and 300 hurdles for some reason. Both are just, super tough races. So I think it just kind of has that mindset for the athletes that if they can do one, they can do the other. So you said you're in masters track and field. What do you compete in now, and why? Why do you do this at you don't have to hurt your body anymore. What are you doing?
My legs are a little sore now. And I had a sprint workout last night when we had fall training, and I joined my group when we trained. And so yeah, I asked myself that every time I line up for 400-meter hurdles. I ask myself, why at 44 years old am I doing this to myself? But I love the sport. I love competition. I love the people that you meet in the sport. I've met so many
True.
great masters track and field runners, so many great elite level athletes, and it's just out of love. That and health. I'm a pretty healthy guy, hiker, biker, climber, and that type of thing. But you can't beat your genes. And I went to the doctors maybe when I was in my mid 30s, and he said, "You look great, except for one thing." He said, "I'm a little concerned about your levels of oh my gosh, HDLs. I think HDL is the bad one,
One of the
not LDLs.
one of the
Yeah, the
cholesterols or something like
cholesterol.
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he
HDL,
asked,
LDL,
yes,
and
yes.
yeah.
He asked. He said, "Does anyone in your family take statins?" And I said, "I think my dad just started like something that begins with a Z. You know, they all those crazy medicine names."
Yeah.
But anyway, he said it's not crazy high, but it's at a place where I want to keep track of it since you have family history.
Wow.
And I said, "I don't take pills, doc." I said, I'm not a medicine guy. I said, "What can I do naturally to lower these numbers for you?" And he said, "It's just diet and exercise." And so I went, "All right, great. I'll eat a little more, oatmeal and cut back on some of those foods that cause the problems." And I said, "And I'll exercise. I'll figure something out." And I ended up doing a little research, and just like most masters athletes, they go, "There's a master's level for me." And
Right.
immediately I joined up. I started training myself, and that is how I got back into masters track and field, out
And
of love and out of health.
that was going on almost 10 years ago now.
Oh yeah, a little over 10 years
Wow.
probably. Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. I had the same thing just recently, and we're the same age. This is interesting, where the levels were high, the blood pressure was high, and I would echo you exactly. If I don't have to, I mean, I'm talking about have to
Right, have
take
to,
pills
exactly.
and medicine, I don't want to do it. Right. Now the problem is I don't have the discipline that you did. I didn't go, well, okay, I'll start working out. I need to get into that part of it. I haven't done that yet. But the diet's gotten a lot better, that's for sure. Yeah, it's interesting. Wow. So what event do you do that in its masters? You can focus on a lot of events, much like you did in high school. Do you still do the half mile? But I thought I heard you mention 400 hurdles.
Yeah, I still run the half mile on occasion, not as much as I used to when I first got into it. But I love the 400-meter hurdles. It's such a grueling race, but the technique part of it and the step counts in between and having that speed and endurance. I just love it. And so mainly I'm running 400-meter hurdles in the summer, and in the winter, spring, I run a lot of 4x4s with a group of guys that we run on the same club. And so we run at Penn relays, and we run at Millrose games. We do a 4x4
Oh,
at the
wow.
masters level.
Yeah, I saw the Penn relays batons, but I was like, okay, you're just a fan, so maybe you just got batons. So you've run at the Penn relays.
I ran
Holy cow.
twice in high school, and I never ever forgot that experience. And so when I became a head coach my first year, I was never an assistant coach until now at Regis. But I was a head coach. I got hired as a head coach, my first coaching job at high school, and I wanted to have that opportunity for my kids. And I was the
Wow.
girls coach at the time. We had girls and boys side before I ended up shifting to coaching both. And I was like, I'm going to get these girls to Philly if it's the last thing I do.
Huh.
And so all of those batons are from every year I've taken the girls, and it's just a girls trip. Um, and I take those girls and they compete at Penn Relays. And then the cool thing is I get to compete as well. So they get to see me run a 4x4.
Oh, yeah.
I also sub in and I run a 4x1 because as masters, a lot of people get hurt. And so every year I end up running the 4x1, which is fun because I'm not a sprinter. So it lets me be a sprinter for,
Right.
12 seconds.
What is those girls, those athletes, when they first show up to Penn? So I got to do a couple years of Penn when I was coaching at Mississippi State, and it is an experience when you walk in, and I mean the stands are full near. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
crowd there, which is almost unlike any other place until you go to like Hayward and such. What's their like? I mean, do their eyes just get as big as freaking plate saucers when they walk in?
I think that first time they walk into the paddock and you can go in with them as a coach, and because you got to take all the clothing out.
Right.
And I think that is the moment when I really see the eyes get big and I see them go, now I know why my crazy coach wanted to bring me 1,800 miles across the country to this place. I cannot believe this. And so usually after that first paddock experience, when they come back off the track and they're like, wow,
Wow.
that was amazing. I have never had 20, 30,000 people cheering. And it's just an experience. And I love being able to give that to them because I felt that in high school.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, what about for you now as a coach? You get to bring the rookie, now the people that come back second, third year, and there's still an experience there, but
Oh yeah,
that awe-inspiring first time, there's never a second first time, right?
there isn't.
So
There
as a
isn't.
coach, you get to bring the rookies out there. I mean, that's got to be an amazing feeling. Not everybody gets that opportunity. Most people don't get that opportunity.
Exactly, and not out west. I mean, you know that
Yeah.
Penn Relays is an East Coast mainly. It's heavy, and so to have them be able to experience that, they can walk around and say, I have experienced something that most kids west of the Mississippi have never even heard of.
Right. Right. That's so cool, man. I love that you give them that experience. Do you plan on? You said you're the assistant coach at Jesuit. Is there a plan on bringing them to Penn Relays as well, or?
Most definitely. I mean, we were planning it in the spring before COVID hit, and of course, shut down
Yeah.
spring season. But most definitely, I mean, when I quote unquote interviewed for the job with the head coach, one of the things I said to him was, "Listen, as a condition of bringing me on, I'm just telling you, I'm going. I want to take some of our kids." But whether or not I take our kids, I will be going. And so if you bring me on, just know that I'm going to be gone a few days in April, either alone or with some of our kids, but I'll be gone.
But, talking to coaches around the country, one word is something that I would use for every single one of them, and that's passion. I love this passion for a fantastic meet. I said I was always a Drake guy from the different coaching stops, and then my last stop at Mississippi State, we went to Penn, and Drake is still, full disclosure, my favorite track meet. I love it. I love the people. Now the director of Drake Relays is Blake Bolden, who is a dear personal friend as well. But I tell you what, I think everybody needs to experience the Penn Relays at least once.
At least
Again,
once.
it is different. It's not for everybody, but it is different. I love that passion that you're like, man, that's what I grew up on. I had such great experiences. I want other people, specifically west of the Mississippi, like you spoke about, to experience that as well. That's so cool. Those will be memories. Those kids 20, 30 years from now, when they're talking to their kids that are running track or they're coaching
Exactly.
track, they'll be like, let me tell you when I went to the Penn Relay. Let me tell you what it feels like, 20,000 plus people cheering you on. That's amazing, man. I love that. So let's talk about today as a high school coach. You worked in a couple different places and now at Jesuit specifically. How has it been for the kids in this whole coronavirus COVID-19 time in regards to just their psyche, in regards to they lost a season. Some of them are trying to get recruited for college track. Some of them are just trying to go to college. How have they handled this?
I feel like a lot of the kids that I have come in contact with um, are kind of aimless. They just don't know what to do, or how to quite accept what's going on, and so they're just kind of sitting and waiting. Just okay, what's going to happen? I'll just sit here and wait, and that's why one of the reasons why I was so excited to be cleared to get back to fall training, because I think kids want to get back. I mean, my own son has been driving me crazy. He's a thrower, discus and shot.
Nice.
And I think he asked me 2 or 3 times a day, can we please go to the weight room? Can we go to the weight room? I'm sorry, son, we can't go on campus yet. I'm not sure. I have to wait until all the policies are in place. I don't know. And so finally last night, we got to the weight room for the first time on campus. And he was just in heaven. And so I think a lot of kids are like that. They don't know quite what to do. And so they're just kind of waiting on us. And I had a couple kids in the spring who I coached at my old school and coached through my club program. And they came to me and called me up and they went, "Hey, listen, there's nothing going on at my high school. None of my coaches are offering anything throughout the late spring. We know that you're probably doing something. Are you able to, help us out a little bit? We're seniors. We're trying to figure out where we're going to go to college. And we would like to keep working a little bit and stay fit because our college coaches still want us to be ready." And so, I was happy to be able to, help those kids out and just kind of help keep them fit and keep them, technically sharp so that they could be ready for this fall training.
And those were graduating seniors.
Graduating seniors.
Yeah. So they had already
missed.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, they missed. One of them would have most definitely been a 2-time state champion. She won the high jump for me as her coach the year before when I was still at her school. And so, I'm pretty sure that she would have probably won it again this year, maybe even the long jump because she placed third the year before. And the young man was a great 300-meter hurdler. I'm almost positive that he would have been, top 5 on the podium. And so these are kids that lost a lot. And I think they were, like I said, they were just aimless. Like, we lost a lot. What do we do?
So it's missed opportunities and missed experiences. There's kids that probably this would have been their first year to go to Penn, speaking of the relays, and they didn't because the season was dropped, and now they may never get to go.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's tough. Talking to coaches around the country, so 30 to 60-year-olds. Some we're struggling as coaches, as a coaching body, to what do we do? How do we figure out this? I don't even want to call it a new normal, this new abnormal that we live in. I can't imagine a 14. I think about myself when I was 14 to 18. As a 40-year-old, I can tell you, like, hey, well, start working on pro activity, start working on what's the next experience. Telling that to a 17-year-old who had their eyes set on the 2-time high jump state champ, that's hard.
That's hard.
If not impossible, to be real frank. Yeah.
Right. But you're right.
But what about the younger ones that are still, whether they're going to compete in college or just attend college? How are they handling right now as far as, Division I, I think they can't have anybody on campus, recruits, or go visit. I think the rest of them, D2, D3, NAIA, and JUCO, can do campus and in-person visits, although some people may not want to do those right now at this point. But right now, obviously, recruiting is it's not normal. It's interrupted, it's disrupted, if you will. How are they handling college admissions, college choices, coach, what program they go to? What's the kind of sentiment there for high schoolers?
A lot of them are still in that waiting period. They're still not quite sure what to do. A lot of them have gone to using things like Zoom and text and phone calls, weekly phone calls to make their contact with coaches and stay in touch. Um, and so they've just kind of had to adapt that way, knowing that I can't go to the campus. I may not be able to, visit, these coaches in person, but I'm still trying to keep the lines of communication open. And I think
Mm.
that's the important part that they've learned is that let me just keep communicating. If I'm looking for a college, I'm going to keep sending emails. I'm going to keep
Yeah.
updating them and letting them know, hey, we don't have season yet, but I am participating in some fall training with, my school or my club, or, I'm still preparing. Um, I'm still trying to get into meets that are open. And so they're keeping those lines of communication open. And I think that's important for these kids.
Yeah, that's got to be key, right? Like on social media, I'm a big social media guy. I see a lot of times on Twitter where coaches are a little bit disparaging on some of the emails they get, and some of the emails are,
Sure.
hey, I'm Joe, can I be on your team? Or, what can I get a scholarship? And it's like, well, Joe, I don't know what your GPA is, your event,
Exactly.
all these kind of things. Although I then, sometimes I'll talk to a coach and be like, okay, realize where you were as a 16-year-old or 17-year-old as well. Would you have crafted this fine email that you're expecting? Like, let's have some grace here for people. But I think that proactivity has to be such a positive for the college coaches of like, oh, okay, at least they are still reaching out. They're showing interest in me, and therefore, hopefully, they're being reciprocated and
Right.
having interest shown back. That's interesting. So, what about high school coaches in general? And I'm not going to put you on the spot and make you the spokesperson of every high school coach
Sure.
in the country, not even Colorado, but I know you have a lot of friends that are high school coaches and such. How are high school coaches who are also teachers? And we need to talk about what you do. You're not a teacher, and I do air quotes there, but I want to talk about your profession outside of
Sure.
coaching too, because it's super, super important. But before we get there, what's the kind of sentiment of high school coaches as they're dealing with all of this while trying to be teachers at the same time?
It's tough, and I talk with one or two really close coaching friends of mine. Um, a couple times a week. One probably I talk to 3 or 4 times a week. We're just kind of that close, and
Hmm.
we coach together outside of high school um, in club. But um, you know, we're just trying to navigate the waters, and we're all trying to. You talked about being proactive earlier. We're trying to be proactive to be prepared for this upcoming spring. Our season in Colorado was pushed back from, we normally start the last week of February. It's pushed back to April 26th. So we've only got a 2 month season, April 26th to June 26th.
Did they push
Um,
back the state championship?
yeah, so the state championship will
Okay,
be pushed back as well.
but still a
Um,
2 month
two
window
months
essentially.
season. And so there was actually a meeting with our state board yesterday, and I missed that Zoom call. So he called me up and said, I was on the call, and I just wanted to see if you were there, and if, what your thoughts were. And I was like, unfortunately I missed it. Um, however, we're trying to be proactive, and we're trying to maintain contact with our kids
Mm.
and let them know that what we are still here. There was a period where it may have felt like we weren't there for you, but we are. um, a lot of us coaches, not just here in Colorado but across the country, we're able to now start up some fall training.
Mhm.
Coaches that have never done fall training realize
Right.
that you know, if you don't have a fall sport or a winter sport, that means you will have a complete entire year off from track and field. And so if you don't do any work now or starting in maybe December, January, it's going to be hard to get you ready for a short 2 month season. And
Mhm.
so a lot of coaches now are warming up to that idea of maybe it's okay to get these
Hmm.
kids out here in late fall and do a little bit of work and get them prepared. And so
Hmm.
that's mainly what it's like for us. we spent most of the spring, or at least I did. I don't know about most coaches, but most of the spring I spent glued to a Zoom screen watching Todd Lane and Vince Anderson and Kaba Tolbert and all of these great coaches that I glean information from. Lateef Thomas and Mark Mangiacotti. I love these guys. I feel like these guys are like my brothers, and I've never met any of them in person, but I love those guys. And so, I don't know if they know how much offering those Zoom sessions that they all did meant to high school coaches like me. It really meant a lot, and it kept me pursuing the fire, and it kept me in the game. Whereas there were days where I felt like, man, I just don't care anymore. Track's gone, but being able to connect with those guys when they offer those things really kept me learning and growing as a coach and preparing for this week when we started fall training. So I really appreciate them for that.
I love that you not only gave those four gentlemen, and I know three of them really well. I don't know Lateef all that well, although he's good friends with Kaba and Mark and those guys, so I kind of feel like I know him. But I really love that you shouted them out there with that specific message that you just gave, because sometimes when you're on the other side, and by the other side I just mean, hey, I'm going to try to create content. I'm going to do a Zoom, session out there. You sometimes wonder, is it worth it? It's a lot of work to do that. Am I really affecting positivity and positive change to people? So I love the fact that you actually don't know them, because when they hear this story, I just know it's going to help them to understand, oh, okay. I hear from my friends all the time, but maybe I don't realize that, there's this stranger out in Colorado who is not only receiving value on the coaching side, how to coach and the events and things like that, but there's encouragement of okay, this is some normalcy for me, coaching, how to coach. I can now take this to my athletes, etc. I think that's just an amazing message, because I subscribe to I'm from Florida and Alabama originally, so I subscribe to the cockroach theory. You know the cockroach theory at all?
No.
If you see one cockroach in your house, there's 100
cockroaches. Okay, all right. Yeah, okay. I know. I've heard that. Yeah.
So what
Borax
I believe
was the cure where I was from. Yeah, and it was, if we saw one, Mom went and got the borax, because there was 10.
Yes. So if there's one coach out there in Aurora, Colorado that received encouragement and support from these training sessions, well, then I know there's a million coaches out there that we may never hear from. Lateef, Todd, Kaba, Mark, they may never hear from them individually, but for them to know their work matters, that's important, man. I love that. That's so awesome. Thank you for shouting those guys out. And three of those guys are really, really good friends of mine. So two of them I've had on the podcast. Kaba Tolbert, I had a two-parter, man. He was amazing. I love him. Known him for a long time. And then Mark Mangiacotti.
He's a Jedi master.
He is. No joke. Hey, I kind of keep this around because of him. So he's got the nickname of Yoda.
Yeah.
I keep my little Yoda in my office just to remind myself of just thoughtfulness, study, be genuine and try to learn things. I get that from Kaba all the way. So that's my little Yoda guy to remind me of that stuff, man. And then Mark was on the podcast. He's one of the OGs. He's one of the original 10 individuals on the podcast, man. So I just owe those guys so much, man. Such good people. And Todd's awesome. And like I said, Lateef, I've heard so much about. I just know you're awesome, Lateef, because I know you're listening out there too. So let's talk about, I alluded to this a little bit, about your job, your full-time job. You're not a traditional teacher in the sense you're not an English teacher or a history teacher or whatnot. Tell us a little bit about what you do and how'd you get into this? Because this is just such a, God bless you. We need more of this. Talk to us about this.
So I'm to keep it simple, what you might call a behavioral specialist, or, I work in behavior. I work in our district's special education office, out of that office. And so I provide support to general education classrooms, as well as our special education classrooms, to our teachers and to our paraprofessionals. So sometimes I find myself in autism classrooms while I'm working with those students, and helping them with their behaviors and working on their learning plans and their behavior plans. Um, Often I find myself working with our students in our general education classrooms um, who have some severe behavioral issues. And so I may go in and work with their teacher and work with some of our other special education professionals to develop a plan for them in class to help them curb those behaviors so that they can learn and not be prohibited from learning because of some of the behaviors that they're exhibiting. And so days can be tough. Days can be really tough. But I enjoy the work. I love the kids that I get to see. I'm never in the same place for more than a week or two, which I really love. And so, I'll see some elementary school kids and I'll see some middle school kids and I'll see on occasion, not as much, but on occasion, some high school kids. Um, and so, like I said, it's tough work, especially when I'm working with kids that have those behavioral issues. Um, but I know that in the end, I'm making a difference. I know that those paraprofessionals and teachers in the classroom that I go help and I go support, I know that they appreciate me coming in and helping and showing them, other things that we can try and helping make their lives better. So it's not just about the kid, but it's also about that teacher and the adults in that classroom and in the school as well.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, you had a lot of options for careers. Why did you choose to go this route?
I think it's just one of those things that, you find out over time. I mean, I bounced around a lot, through college years, trying to figure out, what do I want to do? I wanted to be a biologist at one point. I was going to run through the rainforest and be an entomologist chasing insects because I love bugs and stuff. Um, then, I realized that, oh man, I'm pretty good at this, working one-on-one with kids thing. And then it was, I mean, I really love the 3rd to 5th grade age, and, I went around a lot, but I think, eventually you settle on where you're gifted. And
Mm.
I'm gifted working with kids. I'm gifted working with, small groups and individuals one-on-one. Um, and I'm gifted building relationships because that's what a lot of the kids that I work with, that's what they really need and what they're missing are those relationships. And so I just kind of stuck where my gift lot, was, and that's kind of how I found my way to where I am.
Well, thank God for giftedness, and thank God He gave that to you because it's such a needed. Just like I think track coaches are needed in this world, this profession. It's needed, man. It's needed. It's wanted. It's desired. It needs more the love and attention and patience that you have to have. Yeah, I saw. If you're not watching on YouTube, if you could have just seen Quinn's face there, I'm not going to pretend I know what you do on a daily basis. I did volunteer. My brother, a good friend of mine who I call my brother, his younger brother has Down syndrome. So in high school, I got to volunteer in his class, which had other able-bodied individuals, different physical or mental dis, situations. And, just being in there, I just did it for my senior year, for the whole year. I mean, first of all, you realize what love is. I mean, these individuals, there's not a lot of hate that they know of on this side. There's some, I didn't work with behavior issue kids. I had more of mental and physical. But boy, they don't know dislike. They don't know hate. They don't know. they know love, like, friendship, laughter. We had an individual in the class. This was my senior year. I graduated in '94. You probably graduated.
94,
Yeah. I was gonna say
94,
we're the same age. I still remember certain sign language that I picked up and learned from working with them. I still to this day sit down,
Yep, sit down.
yeah. You learn that one quick. Please sit down for the love of God. Yeah. Good. Thank you. All this stuff. I mean, and that was 20. How long ago was that? 26.
Like 26
That's
years
how long
now,
it is, right? We have to do
27.
the
Yeah.
math. That's like,
Yeah, we
wait a
got to
minute, how
do the
long?
math.
Yeah. That's a long time ago. But those kids affected me. I mean, to the positive, and definitely the number one word I would say for any of those guys and gals that do your profession, patience, right? I mean, Like,
That's normally, people that have known me, for most of my life, or they meet me and they go, "Gee whiz, you have the patience of Job," and I go, "Yeah, pretty much." That's one of my gifts is just extreme levels of patience.
well, so thankful that because not everybody gets this. You recognized your giftings, patience and love and selflessness, and so some of us get there. Some of us don't. Some of us never actually get to realize what our gifts are. Some of us do. The next step, though, not all of us get to now take those gifts that we recognize and use them in a professional or hobby type manner. We never get to use that gift for others. And so, so awesome to see when it connects, when everything lines up and you recognize the gifts that you have and you're able to put those into a professional setting that, benefits so many people, more people than you would know. That's so amazing.
That's why I'm so grateful to be able to do what I do, and also to be able to coach, because um, it's a part of me. And I know a lot of coaches felt that way this spring, that a part of me has been taken away.
Yeah.
And when are we going to get that back? Because, and I mentioned this to a coach last night who sent me a message over Twitter, and he was like, "I see your fall training. I bet you're glad to be back." And I went, "Well, yeah, you know exactly what it's like. It's a gift to be able to do what we do, and we have a gift to be able to coach, effectively. And not being able to share that gift, it is so tough on us. It's just, like I said, it's like taking a part of you away."
Absolutely, absolutely. Have you been able? Excuse me. I don't know that this is a yes or no. To be real frank, is any part of track are you able to use in your profession? I don't mean necessarily. I don't think you're having the kids run over hurdles or whatnot, but anything with track is able to translate to what you do.
I think the planning,
Mm,
for me, and if you're going to get to that level where you are an effective coach, high school, no matter the level, you've got to be a planner. You have
agreed.
to have a plan and in place, on paper, on the computer, and you have to be ready with that plan. You have to be ready to have some flexibility with that plan as well. But if you're going into a season and you're just coaching off the top of your head, with stuff from 1983 that your high school coach gave you, you are not going to be successful. And so I think that level of planning that I put into my track seasons, I'm able to put into just my daily job,
Mm,
because I have to have a plan. I have to know, what am I going to do when that kid gets up and he tosses a chair because he's angry? What's my plan? I have to have a reactive and a proactive plan. What am I going to do before that to keep that from happening? Um, and so the planning is really important. And there are days when I do use the physical aspect, because sometimes the kid just needs a break. They need to move, and it's like, "Hey, come on, let's grab that basketball. We're going to go out and shoot some hoops. Hey, I bet you can't hurdle over this little barrier right here. I'm going to show you how I hurdle." And so there are moments where I'm actually using some physical activity. "Hey, I bet you
ew.
can't shot with this paper ball across the classroom," while nobody's there. But it's you do use a physical aspect in the line of work that I do as well.
That's cool. I love that. I could visualize every one of those. That's so cool. Man, I love that. Thank you so much for doing what you do. Again, patience level, you have to have it because the stress level is just it's through the roof, man. I mean, there's times when we think as a coaches or even as as a sales professional that there's high stress. Let me tell you what, be in a room full of kids that need you and maybe don't necessarily know how to express that need.
Exactly.
That's stress, buddy. So speaking of stress, you have I'm so excited. This is the whole reason I invited Quinn onto the podcast here. So that was all well and good, all his professional life and Morgan State and all that kind of good stuff. I just wanted to talk to Quinn about his hobby. Tell us what your hobby is. Let's just start there. What is your hobby, man?
So I am, one of my hobbies, but one hobby that I do probably the most is bird watching. I am what we call birders. If you're across the pond in England, they call them twitchers. I learned that this year.
Really? A
Yes,
twitcher? Wait, now
twitcher. They call them twitchers.
there's an actual Twitch, like it's social media essentially. Have you heard of Twitch? The video, the watching?
I
Yeah.
have, but this term was way before social
Twitcher.
media. Yeah,
So
over in England they call them twitchers.
so again, I told you I'm from Alabama, so we got to keep things simple. Birder makes sense. Like, oh, somebody who watches birds are a birder. How did they come up with Twitcher? What does a Twitch got to do with birds?
I asked a guy once. Going quickly at a moment's notice because there's a bird in the area.
Hey, it blanked out. Go back to where I asked you, what's Twitcher got to do with bird? So you said I learned. Okay. Start back up there, and I'll cut all this part out.
Sure. So I learned that twitching, in a sense, was related to immediately getting up and going after birds and following them, because in the birding arena, I guess you would call it, sometimes you have birds that come through your area that are not native and don't really belong. And so kind of like fast twitch muscles with track and field, you get up and you go, oh, there's a common black hawk here in Colorado. Get in the car, we're going. And so I think that's kind of where the nature of the term, if there's someone in the UK, shoot me some information correctly.
Yeah. If you know what Twitcher is, hit us up on Twitter. Either my Twitter handle is at Mike Cunningham. I keep it as easy as possible. Tell me your Twitter. It's like Coach Q. Tell me your
Q the track coach. Yeah.
Q the track coach. All right, hit us up on Twitter if you know more about Twitcher and twitching and all that kind of good stuff. We're in the U.S. right now, so we're just gonna call it birding. How did you get into birding?
Well, as I said, I think I mentioned before, when I first started college, and I wanted to be an entomologist. And so I was an outdoors person. I was that kid growing up. We spent, we're the same age. You know what it was like growing up in the 80s. It was outside at the crack of dawn,
all the time,
home before the street lights came on. And so I spent my days out. If I wasn't playing baseball, basketball, whatever, football with my friends, we were riding bikes. We were running through the woods, chasing after snakes and frogs. And so, but I was that kid that really loved that stuff. And so I fell in love with nature. I've always loved nature. And so one of the reasons why, I love living out here in Colorado, and I love hiking and the climbing and the mountain biking, is because I'm being physical, but I'm also out in nature. And there were days where I didn't want to get on my mountain bike and ride 30 miles up and down hills, or I didn't want to go to a climbing crag and climb until my arms fell off. And birding was just a natural way to get outside, still get some exercise because you're moving, you're walking, but to just really slow down and focus in on the details and enjoy nature and enjoy the birds.
So what is the hobby of birding? Meaning, I saw the other day you posted, I think it was one of your kids, I believe.
My daughter.
Your daughter. You'd posted, maybe you said life bird or life catch number 269, the race to 300 or something like that. So this sounds very collectish. Like I'm gonna use it in a term that I have very little knowledge about. Seems a lot like Pokemon. You got to catch them all type of thing.
I feel like that some days when I am standing out in the middle of nowhere. Sometimes I'm standing in the middle of a neighborhood with a pair of binoculars, and I'm hoping that the people aren't going, why is this guy standing out behind my house with binoculars? Right. But it is like that some days. A lifer is when you see a new bird species for the very first time. You call that a lifer.
Okay.
And so my daughter started birding with me this spring. She just turned 13. And I've always known from a young age that she was just gifted. She's an observer. She's got a great eye. And And so this spring, we had nothing else to do, no work and no school. And so I bought her a pair of binoculars, and I said, hey, you want to bird with me and spend some time outdoors? I felt bad because she lost lacrosse, she lost softball, and that physical activity is important for our children.
Yeah.
And by losing that, I thought, how can I get her outside?
Mhm.
I did end up making a little side story. I made a lacrosse goal out of PVC. And so we would
Cool.
go to the park and practice her lacrosse.
Awesome. Man, what a
Um,
good dad you are. Holy cow. That's awesome.
I tried.
Yeah.
But it was a way to get her outside and get her some physical activity until she can get back to lacrosse and softball. And so on that first day, May 9th, she had seen officially 0 birds, we say.
Okay. Okay.
And in that now, I guess 4.5 going on 5 month, she has seen 200 as of last night, because she got a new one last night, 269 different species. And so this is the first year ever that I have seen more than 300 species in a year. And so I thought, well, I'm over 300. I wonder if we can get you to 300 by December 31st. And so
Right.
that's where the goal comes in. She's
Got
got
it.
31 new species to see, um, to reach that goal by December 31st. So we'll see if we can get her there.
Do you know how many you've seen? Like you personally? Like what's your record?
443 is my life list
So how do you know?
species.
You said life list there. So do you have like a book you write these all down, or how do you
I
keep
used to
track?
have a book. I started birding in 1996.
Wow.
And so I used to just write down the day I saw the bird and where
Mm-hmm.
in my old, bird book, my bird guide.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's all digital. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's an app on our phone, and we hit start when we start birding. It tracks where we've walked, and it's got a whole database of every bird in the world. And you just click the bird name, and it keeps everything for you. So I don't
Really?
have to remember what I've seen. I can just go to my app and click life list, and it'll populate a list of all 443 that I've seen.
That's interesting. It goes even farther than just all the species. It'll track where, so you know where you've been, and it'll track
I
like
know, yeah.
GPS. It says, okay, you found this
Yes,
bird here, and the date and all that kind of stuff.
exactly. It's
Wow.
shout out to eBird. I mean, they have
eBird.
changed the game for citizen science as far as ornithology goes.
Wow. Well, you just said like 3 words there that just went right over my head. Citizen science and what was the last one?
So ornithology is just the study of birding,
Birds. Okay.
and it is truly, eBird and some of the other apps that are out there as well. iNaturalist is another one that is caught on that's really big. But it allows us, the normal person who is not a biologist or ornithologist, a mammologist, it allows us to be active participants in science. And so
Mm.
when we go out and we track these birds and we identify them, we are contributing to science as a whole. And eBird does a really great job of helping us keep our records. If I report something that's a little out of season or
Yeah, I was
that's
gonna ask
kind of
that. Yeah.
rare,
Yeah.
they have a reviewer, and that reviewer will email you and say, hey, listen, how did you know what you saw? Tell me a little more about how you came to that conclusion. We just want to make sure the science is right. And so that happens on occasion.
Wow. Yeah, because I assume maybe this is a bad assumption. I was gonna say I assume it's hard to take a picture of that bird in a lot of cases because sometimes it could be flying, moving. You're trying to binoculars with a camera. Like it's not always 100% that you're gonna get a
Right.
picture.
And I don't carry a camera. A lot of birders do. I haven't gotten to that place yet where I feel like I want to lug around binoculars and a camera.
Right.
Um, but a lot of birders do, for that fact alone, that they can take a snapshot and then upload it to their account so that the reviewer can see visually what they've seen. On
Hmm.
occasion, I'll take a snapshot through my binoculars for something that's really, really rare, but I try to do a really good job of just providing good descriptions of what I've seen, because like I said, I don't carry a camera, so I'm just going by what I've seen and what I know about birds.
And how do you know that it's a different bird? complete novice here, like probably most of our listeners right now. I know what a hummingbird looks like, so I can tell you a hummingbird. Although I know there's like 100 different species of hummingbirds. I told you I was so excited. I told you I was excited about talking to Quinn about bird watching. Yesterday morning, there was three huge. I mean, I thought they were huge bluebirds in my yard. We don't see bluebirds very often. And I messaged Quinn. I was like, Quinn, I saw bluebird. So I know bluebirds, cardinals, hawks and whatever, but there's a million different species of birds. How do you know when you have a specific one, and maybe a specific one that you haven't already caught, if you will?
Well, it really comes down to just noticing the simple things. I mean, if we went out and I took you birding for the first time, I would say start noticing things like color, because you're going to see color most of the time. Size is a really, really, really big indicator. This summer I was trying to teach my daughter the difference between crows and ravens. Well, the biggest difference, because they look very similar, but the biggest difference is size. Ravens are humongous birds. And so size is another one. They come in different shapes. And so, I would tell you, look at their shape. Are they round and bulbous? Are they long and thin? What do the head shape look like? So it's really simple things like that: size, shape, color that you would start off with, and then their environment. Was that bird up in a tree, or was it on the ground? Was it near a lake, or was it on the beach? And so, I mean, those four things alone, if you can remember those four things when you go out into the field, that is where you start. And that is where you begin to learn how to identify different birds. And then, of course, don't forget sound. I mean, that's another big one. I mean, this summer, my daughter was on the East Coast with me, and I had to teach her the difference between not just a crow and a raven call, but on the East Coast, we have fish crows. All three look very similar. Differences are size and sound. And so, you begin to learn those things as you get into birding. And that's how you identify, the species that you're seeing.
How do you, what rules have you set for capturing? Meaning, do they all have to be in the wild, or like, can you go visit a zoo and knock out like an owl?
No, there are actually rules set by different organizations. I mean, there's the American Birding Association and other true ornithology associations for the country and the world, and they set standards. And so it's funny, we were at the Baltimore Aquarium this summer. I took my kids the day they reopened after COVID this summer. So the morning they reopened, I took my kids down, since we were on the East Coast, and we went to the National Aquarium there in Baltimore, one of my favorite places. And there were a few cool birds in there. And I think I actually tweeted out, you think they would notice if I added this bird to my eBird checklist? And yes, they would, because you can't add captive birds.
Where did you see this? In a cage.
Yeah, you can't add birds that you've seen by video link, or it has to be in the active activity of birding.
I'm a collector at heart, so I love this. Many people might know that I'm a former professional poker player, and early in my career, I started collecting a poker chip from every place that I've played. And so I've got them all framed up. There's, 330 of them. They're all in different frames around the house. And I like them because almost everyone, even 300 plus now, almost everyone I can look at and I have some memory of it, whether I played there for years, or sometimes in most places I play there for a couple hours and I'll never go back again. But there's always, I have a favorite. There's like, oh, I can go look at that. Like, that's my favorite chip. Love it. My favorite place in Vegas, or my favorite place in California. Do you have a favorite bird that you've caught? Like, is there one you're like, man, I can't believe I nailed this one?
Right. I'm glad you mentioned that. You talked about the memories, and that is what it's about.
Yeah.
When I'm out there and I'm birding, either by myself or with my daughter or other close friends, those specific memories, it is amazing how, like you said, you can remember a specific poker chip. I can remember a specific bird and the place where I saw it, and even what that morning was like, or that afternoon, or that evening. And those memories are powerful, and they're strong. And those memories are the ones that keep well, first of all, get people hooked into birding with what's called their spark bird. But that's what keeps us going, are those memories. And everyone is special, and that's why I've so enjoyed the journey with my daughter. I also, to jump back to track for a second, the journey with my son. My son is a
Yeah.
thrower, and so every practice we have together, or if I take him out to the field and, hey, grab your shot and your discus, let's go work together a little bit. Those moments are what I live for. And so I will never forget, and it's cool because now we're documenting it. I will never forget yesterday morning sitting out with her and finding that black-bellied plover, which is a tough bird to identify, number one,
Hmm.
and it's a migrant, so it's moving through, so it won't be here for long. It'll be gone
Oh,
soon.
yeah.
And so, those moments are amazing moments. I mean, watching peregrine falcons on the cliffs of Alaska hunt, birds. Like, you'd never forget those
Yeah.
experiences. And that's what it's about. I had someone that I follow now on Twitter that posted the other day, some angst that she had about a group of people that keep a rare bird alert, and they keep it very exclusive, and they don't open it up um, to all birders. And so she got together with some people, and they created their own list that's open to everyone. There's no gatekeeping, as she called it.
Mhm.
And I messaged her back and I said, you have no idea how many wonderful experiences over the last few months my daughter and I have had,
Oh,
because people shared information with us, and we were able to then go out and experience that bird. Um, and so it's about those experiences and those memories. That's what it's built on. I mean, that's for everything in life, not just my birding, not just that's what everything in life.
yeah,
Everything.
you
It's
nailed
about
it.
those memories.
Yeah, the my favorite chips are almost always around that I was playing with a friend or a family. Yeah, they're not none of the favorite chips are the ones where I won a ton of money or vice versa, I lost a ton of money.
Right.
But in fact, one of my all-time favorite ones is this little hole in the wall in Vegas. It's called the Nevada Palace, and a former hammer thrower for us at Mississippi State, Matt Holcomb. Shout out to Matt, great friend of mine. When he came to Vegas when I lived out there, his father had just passed away, and that casino was this traditional casino him and his dad would go to every Christmas, played at a tournament. It was just like that was a special memory, and so I got to go there for the first time. So my chip was from that time where he asked me to go with him and experience this. It was an experience. You're exactly right. I mean, it was not the opulent Win casino. It wasn't this or that. I don't even remember how I did. I don't know if I won a dollar or lost a dollar, but I remember being able to share an experience with one of my good friends revolved around his dad. I mean, that was I'll never forget that. So I love that they're in this birding hobby. It's the same thing, that there are times when you and your daughter have been together and experienced something you would never experience any other time, and your son would track. That's awesome, man. That's so you hit it right on the head, man. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, living through COVID, as we all have, over this year, I think a lot of us have, I mean, I guess one of the benefit, if we can call it a benefit, is that it has pushed all of us to kind of look inwardly and then look at the people in our lives and really cherish
Yes.
those people and those experiences, because that is it's what it really, when the rubber hits the road, that's what it's really all about. It's about our close friends and family, and how we serve our communities, and building those memories. That's what it's about.
I think I agree 100%, and I think that's why me and you and a whole other track coaches in this world are so excited about this indoor or outdoor season, where we get to see each other, we get to see our athletes, we get to see the fruit of their work and our work with them. This might be the most magical track season we ever have coming up in 21. It really could be, because you sometimes take for granted those awesome things that we have in this sport and in your lives in general until it's taken away from you, right? And so track was taken away from us. We're going to get it back in 21, and it's going to be It's going to be pretty special. I just
I
know it.
believe so. I mean, if it's anything, if some of the cool things that we saw this summer out of, I believe it's Warholm. I mean, the 400-meter hurdle races that we
Yes.
had, and of course, Mondo and his, pole
Yes.
vault, and even some of the early season stuff. I think Benjamin and the other guy. I think they ran pretty fast, even 100 meters, and not
Yep.
even 400 meters. And if we look at a lot of these performances that we've seen from these great men and women over the summer, I think it's going to trickle down into the spring, all the way to even our high school and our youth kids, and that's what I'm excited about seeing.
Absolutely, man. Well, Quinn, as we wrap up here, man, I can't say thank you enough for joining us today. This was awesome, man. And I know very selfishly, I just wanted you on here to talk about birding because I love learning new things. But I tell you what, your background, your professional life, it just all kind of your dadness, all of it mixed together is a real special combination, man. I'm just so thankful that you would join us and share your journey and your story with us today.
I'm really appreciative of you as well. I was a little nervous when you reached out to me, and I was like, why does he want to talk to me? Like, I'm just a high school coach, and I don't know anything, and I don't think I have anything to share with anybody around the world. But I really appreciate this opportunity and this platform, and I really truly did enjoy it. This was awesome.
Well, I'm famous for challenging our guests and sometimes even admonishing. And now it comes up to my challenge and my admonish for you. Here's my admonishment. You are not just a track coach. You are not just a high school coach. There's a very distinct reason why we reach out to coaches of all I mean, we've had I'm doing air quotes here if you're not watching, the top of the top. We've had Mouse Holloway, what an amazing person and obviously an amazing coach. Brooks Johnson, just really, I tell you what, he blew my mind on things. So I mean, the guys that have done it at the Olympic level, etc. And we've had a AAU coach in Florida that if you're not down in Florida, you don't know who Robbie Strickland is necessarily, because that whole gamut of people have value no matter where you are. If you are a middle school coach, a summer club coach, high school, college, Division I, JUCO, does not matter. You have value where you are right now. And if you can realize that, well, then you can affect greater change in your
Exactly.
circle. And if every one of us did that, well, then we'd have the macro change throughout the country and the world and what have you. So you're not just a track coach, my friend. Sorry to tell you that. You are a track coach, and you're an amazing track coach and person and leader for our kids out there. And so from all of us at Gale and everybody who's listening, thank you for that. Now, that was your admonishment. Now, I've got your challenge. Earlier, and I'm getting out my Yoda for this one, okay? Got my Yoda guy here. Earlier, I said, you're such a good dad, because I do, as a father of two kids myself, 9 and 6, I value parenthood and motherhood and fatherhood specifically, right? And I said, man, you're such a good dad, with your daughter and your kid. You built that lacrosse goal. That's amazing. And you said, yeah, I'm just trying. You remember what Yoda said? Do you remember the famous Yoda? Do
There is no
or do not.
Yeah, there
There is no
try.
try. And my friend, you are doing as a father. You ain't trying. You are doing an amazing job. I love seeing pictures of you and your daughter out there. I want to see some throwing pictures. Get him on there as well.
I posted last night him in the weight room.
Oh, good. Oh,
I
yeah. I'll have to go
posted
check
some
that.
pictures of him over the spring in the video. So
awesome.
now that we're back to working, and he's back to being out on the track with me and practicing his throws, then definitely there'll be some more video and pictures of him as well as he's perfecting his craft.
Well, you are doing a great job, Quinn, as a coach. The stories of taking kids to pin relays, I mean, that's upper level stuff, my man. That's why I say you're not just a track coach. Being engaged with your kids, not only just in track, that's maybe the obvious ones, like, oh, he's a track coach, of course he's good. But to have your daughter involved in your hobby, and now she's got a hobby, she's got this goal of hitting, that's amazing. And then of course your professional work with kids that just we need to pour more and more love into. You're doing an awesome job, man, and I am so proud of you, and so happy and humbled to have this time with you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Well, I appreciate it a lot. And before I sign off, I want to say my grandfather passed this morning, and so I just want to give a shout out to my grandfather, James Moss Sr. I love you, and I will definitely miss you. But 92 years, what a great life! What a great life you lived, and you imparted so much to me that I am in turn trying to impart to my children and the children that I coach and that I work with. So thank you, Granddad.
Dude, I mean, if you were going to try to define selfless, I think this is where we would define it. You didn't have to be on here this morning. I did not know this.
It was important to me to still be a part of this. And it's not like I'm getting on a plane like in the next hour and heading home anyway. And so this was important to me. I think being here and talking with you and sharing my loves and my life, it was important to me, and it helped me get through some of the emotions that I'm feeling this morning. And so again, I'm appreciative to you, and by no means was this an inconvenience. It was actually a great and a wonderful experience.
Well, shout out to Grandpa, man. He's Grandpa, right?
Yeah, my grandfather.
Shout out to Tell me his name again.
James Moss Sr.
92 years old. That dude lived a life, man. Let me tell you what. Awesome, man. Oh man. Well, we'll be thinking of you and praying for you and your family as you go through this loss, man. That's never easy, no matter what. It's not easy. So, man, I hate to say double thank you, but gosh bless your selflessness to still do this. That means the world. Thank you so much, Quinn.
You're welcome. You're very welcome.